What if the biggest decision about the car you buy next isn't being made by engineers in Detroit, designers in Tokyo, or even the software companies in Silicon Valley? What if it's being settled in a quiet, high stakes tug of war between California bureaucrats and a group of senators in Washington, D.C., over whether one state still gets to play national traffic cop for the rest of us? Last year, Congress, the EPA Director Lee Zeldin, and the President used the Congressional Review Act to finally kill California's Advanced Clean Cars 2 waiver. That's the electric vehicle mandate and that $7,500 tax credit, the grand plan that would have banned the sale of gasoline-powered cars by 2035. Well, we won that war, and a whole lot of people high-fived, closed the laptop, and declared victory for consumer choice. California lost, they said. Case closed. Except California doesn't play case closed. It said, nice try. Now watch this. In June, the EPA under Lee Zeldin sent 4 more California Clean Air Act waivers straight to Congress to get gutted. Just like the Advanced Clean Cars 2 waiver that was signed, sealed, and delivered. And now a group of Republican senators has answered the invitation for 4 brand new Congressional Review Acts, or CRA resolutions, aimed squarely at those older foundation stones that gave California its power. All of this needs to be done so California doesn't tell you what to drive. But there's a lot more to this story. These are not the flashy 2035 ban removals that everyone argued about on mainstream news. These are the legal pillars that the California Air Resources Board, CARB, uses. It's their whole empire. It was built on this. And California already lost the headline fight. Now Washington is trying to rip out the scaffolding the state has used for decades to set the rules that 17 other states cheerfully copy. And almost nobody outside the auto industry and the Washington Beltway is treating this like a serious power grab that it truly is. If you've been following my reporting, you know that California isn't writing the rules for just Californians. It has spent decades constructing a parallel regulatory architecture that other states can opt into or not, and that manufacturers have to design around if they want a national scale. You want to sell in the US, you got to build them for these 17 states. And when Congress knocked down that 2035 ban, California didn't retreat. It pivoted. It got very creative. But let's pause really quick before we jump in, because I want to remind you to like, subscribe, and click that little bell for notifications so you can keep up with everything that's going on in the automotive world. Here is the parts they hope you never connect, and it's getting more specific by the day. California has enjoyed a special carve-out under Section 209 of the Clean Air Act since the 1960s, because at that time, we had a unique air quality problem in California. Smog, and the EPA granted the state a waiver to write emissions rules that are tougher than the federal ones. Once that waiver is in place, Section 177, as it's called, lets other states simply adopt those rules. California standards and across 17 other states have already taken that deal at various times. Together, those 17 states represent enough of the new vehicle market that automakers, because they are rational businesses that make money and they're not charities, usually just design to the strictest common denominator. Building one version for California and its fan club and another for everyone else is expensive, messy, and it's truly not possible. Years and years ago, there would be California emissions listed as a line item, but now that's all changed. 17 states have jumped on board, and so every car brand is forced to build one car for the entire country. So this is how it goes. A regulation dreamt up in California's capital quietly becomes the de facto national standard without Congress ever having to cast a single vote. And last year's CRA resolutions took out the newest, most aggressive pieces of California's powers. The ACC2, trucking regulations, and heavy-duty NOx standards, and more. Those got signed into law in June of 2025 by President Trump. California and its coalition of copycat states, all 17 of them, immediately sued, claiming Congress overreached and that those waivers were never the kind of rules the CRA was meant to touch. That case is still slowly making its way through the courts. Meanwhile, the EPA decided that the older waivers and its powers that made the whole system possible also needed congressional review. And on June 12, 2026, they transmitted 4 of them and started the clock to Defang California. This is a very positive move done by Lee Zeldin. California Attorney General Rob Bonta responded the only way Sacramento knows how. He sued again, and this time in D.C., insisting that the EPA illegally reclassified long-standing orders as rules just so Congress could take another swing at them. The Senate parliamentarian has already said again and again that these waivers fall outside the CRA, and last year the majority simply ignored the advice and created new procedural precedent anyway. This is illegal, but that didn't stop California. They didn't care. They're just going to continue suing because they don't want to give up the power. Now 4 senators have stepped up with concrete resolutions to finish the job for good. Senator Pete Ricketts of Nebraska introduced the resolution targeting the Advanced Clean Cars 1 waiver, the original framework that set the stage for everything that followed. Senator John Husted of Ohio is going after the ACC 1 waiver reinstatement, the one that put the authority back on the books after it had been pulled. Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri is aiming at the 2009 greenhouse gas waiver, the early climate-focused standard that gave California its first real leverage over national greenhouse gas policy for passenger vehicles. And Senator Cynthia Loomis of Wyoming is taking on the small off-road engine rule, the one that somehow decided your lawnmower, leaf blower, and generator need to follow California's electrification timeline too. Very silly rule, but it does affect a lot of people. These 4 senators are not freelancing. This is a team effort. They are working together in support of all 4 resolutions, making it a unified effort to stop California from continuing to set national transportation policy through the back door. The legal ground is still shaky, the political will is still there, and neither side shows the slightest interest in blinking. It's almost impressive how committed they are to never letting you, the customer, decide. This is the moment the isolated media headlines stopped looking random and started looking like a coordinated campaign on both sides. For years, I've been tracking California's side projects: replacement tire restrictions and regulations, right to repair fights, connected vehicle data grabs, insurance companies vacuuming up your driving habits, and now shiny new incentives. Each one by itself can be waved off as just another California experiment. Line them up, and a pattern emerges that should make every driver sit up straighter. While Washington tries to pry the older waivers out of the system through these 4 new CRA resolutions from Ricketts, Husted, Schmidt, and Loomis, Gavin Newsom arrives, launching the My First EV program, $3,500 off a new zero-emission vehicle for first-time buyers, $1,750 off a qualified used one as well. The state put up $135 million of taxpayer dollars and then invited, or told, automakers to match it dollar for dollar if they still wanted to sell in California and wanted a seat at the table. 13 manufacturers signed on, including Ford, General Motors, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, and more. If they want to sell cars in California, they had no options. If they don't comply, they won't be able to. That is a huge issue. I sort of call that blackmail. So the same companies that just watched their carefully planned 2035 compliance timelines get thrown into the blender are now writing checks to keep EV sales moving in the nation's largest market, even though they take a loss on every car and the country has moved on to hybrids and gasoline-powered vehicles. At the same time, California Attorney General Rob Bonta is in court defending the legal foundation that lets California keep setting those standards in the first place. Bonta is using 3 different tools: legislative rollback attempts via the 4 coordinated Senate resolutions, state-funded demand stimulus with manufacturer copays, and aggressive litigation. These are all running simultaneously, all aimed at the same outcome: control over the future direction of the American vehicle market. California won't let go. They love these powers, and they want a fight. Not that I blame them, but we don't want that unless you live in California and you love these rules. This isn't just a single policy fight that got settled last summer. It's a multi-front operation over who actually gets to decide what shows up on dealership showrooms, from California to New York to Texas. The EV mandate was just the loudest piece. The real structure underneath California's powers are still being fought over, all while most consumers are busy arguing over everything else in their lives and pretending the rest of this doesn't affect them at all. The money side of this changes the story. Whether you've been on Medicaid for 10 years or you're just about to sign up, this one's for you. A lot of you are quietly losing money every year, and nobody's pointing it out. Everything costs more these days, and luckily, your Social Security goes up to keep pace, right? Wrong. Medicare's premiums are climbing faster than your cost of living raise, so it gets eaten right back. You're running just to stand still. But here's the thing. This is one bill you can actually do something about. You can make sure your Medicare price and your coverage are dialed in with a company called Chapter. They're honest, independent Medicare advisors. In one simple call, a real licensed person compares every plan against your doctors, your prescriptions, and your budget to find the optimal coverage for your life. If you're already on the best plan, they'll tell you that straight. If not, they'll help you switch. Folks who switched with Chapter last year saved an average of $1,100. It's free and takes under 20 minutes. Click the link below to connect with Chapter. Today's the day to get the facts. Summer is here, and if you want to actually feel confident, less bloated, and energized this summer, not just look like it on the outside, it starts with your gut. I thought being bloated every day was just normal. It's not. And once I fixed my gut, everything changed. My digestion, my skin, my hair. And the one thing that made the biggest difference is cowboy colostrum, which dropped a new cookies and cream flavor. I'm obsessed with it. I started taking cowboy colostrum for my gut, but the results I didn't expect. The one that shocked me, my hair is noticeably thicker and fuller, my skin clearer, and I'm not bloated after every meal anymore. Colostrum supports gut health, and when your gut is right, everything else follows. Digestion, bloating, skin care, clarity, hair growth, all of it. And this isn't just my experience. Cowboy ran a clinical study and the numbers backed it up. 83% of participants reported improved gut health. 79% experienced less bloating and inflammation. 72% saw improved digestion, and 62% saw fuller, thicker hair. Today's sponsor is Cowboy Colostrum, and they offer the highest quality bovine colostrum available in the U.S. It's 100% made in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. Unlike other colostrum brands, Cowboy is true, first-day, whole colostrum, rich in bioactives like immunoglobulins and growth factors. Don't worry, Cowboy Colostrum only collects the surplus colostrum after baby calves have had their fill. Cowboy Colostrum isn't processed or stripped down. Their colostrum is whole, full fat, and high protein for the ultimate nutrient density, making the highest quality bovine colostrum you can buy. No artificial flavors, no fillers, just real whole ingredients. And they just launched their most indulgent flavor yet, cookies and cream. Mixed with milk, it tastes like nostalgic cookies and cream milkshake, but it's the same whole, unstripped colostrum, no fillers or shortcuts. It's become a part of my routine. I have it every morning, pack it when I travel, throw it in smoothies, a treat that actually fits into my day. Not only will Cowboy Colostrum bring stability into your gut, the peptides and growth factors will make your skin and hair look amazing. And if you want to feel your best heading into the summer, this is the one daily habit that actually delivers results you can see. Try the new cookies and cream flavor for yourself. For a limited time, our listeners get up to 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/fix. Use the code FIX, F-I-X, at checkout. That's 25% off when you use code FIX. cowboycolostrum.com/fix. Now, back to the video. Follow the money and the incentives become almost comically clear. On the California side, the My First EV program keeps sales volumes alive after the federal tax credit has completely vanished. And automakers who still want access to sell in that market, and those 17 other states that still follow the older California standards, suddenly have a financial reason to participate or risk watching their shares evaporate. This really means it's an investment in selling cars that don't make a profit. This is a huge catch-22. Either you sell in the state and you comply, or you don't sell in that state and you lose money. A very difficult situation. California loves to claim it's still leading the transition even after Congress told it no on an outright ban. Even as those 4 new CRA resolutions from senators try to dismantle the older legal authority. It sounds backwards, but people believe the marketing. Or do they? Do you? On the other side, the American fuel and petroleum manufacturers and a long list of energy, agriculture, and manufacturing groups have been cheering the Congressional Review Act efforts for years. Their argument is refreshingly simple. Why the hell should one state's preferences raise your costs and kill your choices? I agree with that. California gets special EPA waivers, they set tougher rules, then other states copy them. Suddenly, every car manufacturer in America is forced to build to California standards, whether you live in California or not. And we're talking about older regulations that need to go, and the SOAR rules, which are the rules that hit the lawnmowers, the generators, the leaf blowers, anything that's got 2-cycle or 4-stroke motors, Those are the ones that are being impacted. If those older waivers go away, three things happen fast. The regulatory mess gets simpler. Compliance costs drop, and manufacturers can finally build the cars and equipment people actually want, instead of what one state forces on the whole country. That's it, straight up. Automakers themselves are trapped in the middle, trying to plan multi-year future products while the legal and political grounds keep shifting like California's real estate. They design vehicles years before they reach the showroom. Conflicting signals from Congress, California, the courts, and 17 other states just makes the job more expensive and less practical. Someone always pays for that kind of uncertainty, and it's almost never the people writing the rules or cashing the rebate checks. It's the customer who ends up funding both sides of this fight, whether they realize it or not, and that's you. And if you live in California, the stakes are at least honest. Rebates appear, mandates disappear, then reappear, wearing different clothes, while 4 senators in Washington try to pull the legal rug out from under the whole arrangement. And if you live anywhere else in the country, the stakes are quieter and somehow more insulting. When manufacturers build to California standards because enough other states have adopted them, those vehicles that show up in your local dealership already carry the cost and design constraints of those standards. You may never see California approved badge on the window sticker, but the engineering decisions, the technology packages, the pricing, and the model mix can only be shaped by rules you never voted on and never will. The result is cars just get more expensive. The question isn't whether cleaner air is a worthwhile goal. Most of us want that. The question is whether the mechanism of getting there should be a single state's waiver system that can effectively nationalize policy without a national vote, and whether a coordinated set of CRA resolutions from senators from Nebraska, Ohio, Missouri, and Wyoming is the right way to claw back that power. We will find that out very soon. Higher compliance costs don't politely stay in California. They travel through the supply chain and land in your monthly payment. Fewer powertrain options in some markets eventually mean fewer options everywhere. And when the legal foundation itself is under attack through these 4 specific resolutions and simultaneously being defunded in court by an attorney general who seems to file lawsuits the way most people check email, the uncertainty taxes every buyer trying to decide what to purchase. Is it this year, or is it next year, or the year after? And somehow the people who insist they know what's best for you never seem to be the ones writing the checks at the dealership. Customers can't rewrite the Clean Air Act from the kitchen table, but they can stop treating those stories like distant political noise that only matters to people who live near the ocean. Watch what actually shows up on your dealer lot in your state over the next 18 months as these 4 CRA resolutions move through the process. Ask your state legislators, nicely at first, whether they still intend to follow California standards if the underlying waivers get pulled. And pay attention to those court calendars, both the original 2025 CRA challenge and Bonta's fresh lawsuits over the 4 additional waivers. We'll be covering that, and I'll be keeping you posted. Demand transparency on who's funding the incentive programs and what quiet strings come attached when automakers are asked to match state money just to stay in the game. And most important, keep insisting that the people who claim to speak for the market actually let the market speak. What you want to buy is what you should be able to buy, not what they are telling you to buy. Choice is not a slogan for a press release. It's the difference between a vehicle designed for the customer and a vehicle designed for the regulatory bodies who happen to shout out the loudest and pay the most for the aggressive lawyers. The fight that started with a 2035 ban has already moved to the deeper legal architecture through those 4 coordinated Senate resolutions, the state checkbook, and the federal courthouse. By the time the average buyer notices the outcome, many of those decisions will already be baked into the cars sitting underneath the lights at your local dealer lot. The real question hanging over all of this is no longer simply whether California can ban gas cars by 2035. It's whether one state, through a decade-old waiver system, and the states that copy it like homework still get to set the effective national standard for what the rest of America is allowed to drive. Or whether Congress, the courts, and the customers themselves are finally taking the power back. So here's my question for you. When one state can write the rules that quietly decide what cars show up in the dealerships in your state without you ever casting a vote, do you still think this is just a California problem? Or are you finally ready to admit that the real fight over the next vehicle isn't happening in Detroit, Tokyo, or wherever? It's happening in courtrooms and committee rooms while most of us are busy arguing about gasoline prices. And if Congress actually succeeds in ripping out these older waivers, are you going to celebrate more over choice? Or are you going to complain while electric vehicle rebates disappeared and the selection on the lot starts to look a little bit different? I'm not asking what politicians think, I'm asking what you think. Does one state get to keep setting national transportation policy through the back door, or do the rest of us finally get a say in what we're allowed to drive? Drop your opinions in the comments below.